In this video, Dr. Grieshaber-Bouyer brings us inside his clinic in Erlangen, Germany, where he meets with a patient considering participation in a clinical study with a T-cell engager.
If I decide to go forward with this study, what would the treatment day look like?
Yes, I'm happy to walk you through it. So on the treatment day, we will already have completed your eligibility criteria, and you will arrive in the morning. We will draw bloods again just to make sure that the renal function is stable, that you don't have any elevated liver function tests, that there are sufficient B cells in the blood, that there is no low platelets, for instance, or no other cytopenias, enough white cell counts in the blood. Once these lab tests are confirmed, we will give you pre-medication. For that, we will typically equip you with 1 or 2 peripheral lines. We will give you pre-medication that usually consists of glucocorticoids, so steroids, Tylenol to prevent fever, and then an antihistamine. These medications can make you a little bit drowsy. And then after 1 to 2 hours, we will commence treatment. It's a single subcutaneous injection. It's prepared fresh from the pharmacy on the same day. You will receive the subcutaneous injection, and at that point, really we just monitor you for any potential side effects. So we look at the blood oxygen saturation, we look at the heart rate, we look at the blood pressure, we regularly take your temperature, and we monitor you for any symptoms such as confusion, other neurological deficits. We will do twice a day with you a very simple score where we look at your orientation and your ability to perform normally on a neurological scale. And then really after the observation period is completed, after 48 hours to 72 hours, then you are discharged. And we continue with the next dosing, which, for instance, in the second dose cohort is on day 8, but this is of course dependent on the study design.
Then we asked patients what they wanted to know about clinical studies with T-cell engagers.
Hi, I'm Amber. I have moderate lupus. I'm currently on a treatment plan for lupus that works okay for me, but I'm considering participating in a clinical trial. So, how do I weigh the risks and benefits of leaving a treatment plan that's actually helping, even if it's just a little bit, to join a clinical trial?
So I would say this really depends on the clinical trial. If you are stable on your current medication, it's probably not the right situation to go off this medication and to join the clinical trial of an experimental drug. Such a switch might come later, more naturally, in later phases of clinical development or after a compound is approved. At this point, early clinical trials are mostly meant for patients that experience inadequate response to standard of care and have active disease.
If I were to join a trial like this, what would the experience look like? Would I need to be hospitalized? How often would I get treatment? And is that something I would have to do more than once?
So in the current stage of clinical development, T-cell engagers are administered in an inpatient setting, meaning that there is a short period, usually 24 to 72 hours, where the patient is hospitalized for monitoring and for safety reasons. And in the foreseeable future, this will likely become more relaxed as T-cell engagers will become applied in an outpatient setting. In terms of the dosing schedule, most studies right now are set up in a way that there is only an initial treatment phase, followed by a phase in which no chronic therapy is administered. And the studies will then show whether this leads to a long-lasting state of drug-free remission or if redosing is necessary in the future.
And is there a possibility that the study medication could get me into a treatment-free remission?
So while we don't have any long-term data yet, how long and how durable the responses to T-cell engagers are, data is emerging that some patients experience long-term responses, and therefore the hope for the future is that this will allow patients to experience extended periods of a drug-free response.
If this treatment shows promise, how would someone like me get access to it? And what kind of patients are likely to benefit the most from this kind of therapy?
So patients that are most likely to benefit, this depends a little bit on the target that is pursued by the T-cell engager. In the context of targeting B cells via CD19 antigen or also via BCMA antigen or other B cell antigens, this is mostly patients that have autoantibody mediated and B cell mediated autoimmune diseases. And this is actually a very large group of patients with autoimmune diseases that encompasses, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus, inflammatory myositis, Sjögren syndrome, systemic sclerosis, and many other types of immune-mediated diseases. And the way to get access to this treatment right now is only via clinical trials. And ultimately, once it is approved, this will be prescribed by the rheumatologist and immunologist.
Can you maybe explain what a phase 1 study is? Also, what are you doing to ensure my safety during the study?
So a phase 1 study is explicitly designed to be a safety study. The purpose of the study is therefore to expose patients to the least risk that is possible whilst safely increasing the dose to reach more efficacious doses. And typical characteristics of a phase 1 study are a very small, limited number of patients that can receive the treatment. Also that patients are typically dosed sequentially and not in parallel until each dosed patient has been evaluated for potential side effects. And there is also very frequent evaluations of the investigators and the entire study group reviewing the data on an ongoing basis to determine, for instance, if the dose can be increased or if the dose has to be maintained and if additional patients have to be enrolled in the current dose level.
My name is Cristina Montoya. I'm a woman living with Sjögren's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. And my first question to you is, how is this treatment different from what's currently available to people living with autoimmune diseases like Sjögren's?
So currently, no treatment is available that is similar to a T-cell engager therapy. T-cell engagers target a specific type of immune cell. In the case of the currently studied T-cell engagers, they recognize B cells. And the goal is therefore to deplete B cells in a very efficacious way. And current approaches to deplete B cells are limited by their ability to deplete cells in the tissues. And therefore T-cell redirecting therapies are uniquely poised to lead to a deeper depletion of such cells in the tissues, potentially accomplishing immune reset.
Sjögren's has historically borrowed medications from other diseases, and understanding that CLN 978 is also being studied in lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, is this really a potential treatment for Sjögren's?
So it has many reasons why no treatments have been approved specifically for Sjögren's disease so far. But it would not be right to think that treatments that are also approved for other disease indications don't make sense in Sjögren's disease. In fact, Sjögren's disease is very much so a B-cell driven disease, and therefore targeting B cells therapeutically, mechanistically makes sense in Sjögren's just as it does in other autoimmune diseases.
I'm Shelley Fritz. I live with rheumatoid arthritis. And if I wanted to explore this clinical trial, how would I go about finding out if I'm eligible?
Yeah, so the eligibility ultimately is always confirmed by the enrolling physician using a standard set of inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then once these inclusion-exclusion criteria are followed, a patient can be enrolled in a trial.
If T-cell engagers prove to be effective, would patients need to use T-cell engagers in combination with other therapies to control their RA symptoms?
So it's conceivable to use T-cell engagers in combination with other therapies, but so far there is no data that would show that this actually needs to be done. And so right now the goal of clinical development is to find out if T-cell engagers can be efficacious enough and even more efficacious than current treatments without having to combine them with other therapeutic approaches.
How long do you think that the clinical development process could take from this phase 1B stage to getting to regulatory approval?
So currently T-cell engagers are in phase 1 trials, and it is unlikely that in the next year, in 2026, T-cell engagers are approved for treatment. However, we could see the opening of registrational trials potentially as early as the beginning of 2027.